You know, I've been thinking, and today I've been thinking I need to pay respects to a dear friend and a coworker. And I want to just do this little bit in memory of him. This is a man that sometimes rubbed people the wrong way. I know he rubbed me the wrong way a lot when we were working together. And I didn't always agree with everything he said, everything he did. But outside of work, we used to do things together and we would talk and we would talk about different things. And we used to go fishing quite a few times together. He used to laugh at me that he was such a better fisherman than me. And you know what? He was. But I still had fun doing it. And I had a good time spending that time with him and talking about a myriad of things. We talked about work related things sometimes, which, we tried not to do, but it's hard to do that when you're in our business. And we would talk about our personal lives, our relationships or lack thereof, or ex-wives or what have you. And we would just talk about things sometimes. We'd talk about spiritual things. And as time grew on, we became really close friends and like brothers. And it's been a minute since I talked to him. But I found out the other day that he passed away at 66 years old. And it saddened the Colonel. It really did. I'm getting up there. I'm 61 years old, and I'm starting to see people I grew up with, people I worked with that are in my age bracket that are starting to pass away. And it really makes you realize how short life really is, and that you really need to make the most of it, of the time that God has given you. And for those of you that know and may have figured it out, that know me personally, you'll know that the man I'm talking about that passed away is a man named Jerry Tincher. Jerry was very dear to me, even though some people may find that hard to believe, because they used to see he and I go at it sometimes at work. And but I just want to take a moment of silence before we go into a different subject that I want to talk about today. And just for me, I want to remember Jerry, and I want to remember him the way that I remember him, which, looking back on it, is always good. Jerry, I know you're in heaven, and I have a lot of joy about that. You'll be missed by your family, and even though it had been a minute since we chatted online, I know that our conversations are always good, and you'll be remembered, buddy. And you're my brother, and someday I'll see you up there. Take care, my friend. I've been thinking about something else also. It's been a sad day, but I want to move on and talk about something else that sometimes can be sad subject too. But once upon a time I had some children, and just for the sake of protecting who they are, we'll just say, I had a son. His name would be Colonel Junior, and then I had three daughters, and we'll just say Susie Q, Sally Mae, and Sandra D. Just for the sake of, I want to protect them. And when they see this, I know they're going to be upset. But it is what it is, because like I said before, I speak my mind. I raised these children along with my wife, which is now my ex-wife, for various reasons that occurred. And I may not have been a perfect father, but I tried to raise my children as conservative Christians, because that's what I strove to be. And I might not be perfect, but I know I'm forgiven. A lot of people don't want to talk about religion. Here I am scratching my head again. But I don't believe in religion. I believe in a personal relationship, and we'll talk about that another time maybe. But as far as my four children, most people were like, Colonel, you're crazy for having so many kids. And I used to tell them, and this may sound arrogant, but I used to tell people, you know what? Somebody's got to repopulate the earth. It might as well be the colonel. And I thought, I'm going to raise up children to respect their country, honor God, honor their parents, and one day be independent and go out on their own and have their own families. And you know, I think I succeeded at that. Not because my wife was really on the same page as me, but I think maybe in spite of that. And something that's funny about my children, they always call me the mean dad. But that might be because I had standards. And of course I was affected by the way my parents raised me. And my parents were ultra conservative. My father was an army chaplain, very conservative. And I would say my mother, God bless her, she was more conservative than he was. And you know, our relatives used to say, we don't know how you two boys survived. And I'm like, I don't know how we did either. But we did, and we're both still kicking. Thank you, Lord. You know, I thank the Lord for every day I wake up. But anyway, back to my children. You know, you put your blood, sweat, and tears in raising your children, or most of you do, or if you don't, you should. You know, you should teach them to follow the values that you hold dear. You know, and I always held to biblical values. Whether you agree with that or not, that's immaterial, but that's what I did. And I thought that, you know, as we got older and everything, that, you know, they would always be there. But I've found that when you're an expat living in a foreign country, and this isn't everybody, you know, this is just telling you what happened with me. And it may be because of the divorce. But as time has gone by, my children and I, we started out, I would say we started out here. But now we're out here. And some would say here, and whoops, the hands disappeared. Where are the kids? Okay? And I have 11 grandchildren, most of which I haven't seen in years. But that's partly my choice, partly their choice. All my children have the means to come see me if they want to, but I know they won't. And you know, at first when I moved to Thailand, I tried to keep in contact. But even before that, 2007, my wife and I split up. And it took me 4 years to divorce her, you know, because she wanted more money than I wanted to give. And I was giving half my paycheck already. I thought I shouldn't have to give more. And when she decided to fight me on it, she ended up getting less. And I had to chuckle a little bit because I told her that's what would happen, but, you know, she knows more than I do. Or she thought she did. But through all this, yeah, and we'll get into that. There's a whole lot to that story, and that's another story altogether. But back to my kids and what happened with my children. You know, I tried to keep in contact once I left, and I even went back. I went back for their school graduations, went back for university graduations. You know, my son, he's a mechanical engineer. He's outstanding in his job, very successful. My oldest daughter, I'm not sure which job she's doing now, but I know that she's a wonderful mother. And she has 4 children. My son has 4 children, which is kind of comical because my son has exactly what I had. First 1 boy, then 3 girls. God bless them. And then my daughter, she's got 2 girls and 2 boys. And I swear that, well, I can't use the real names, but I swear that one young'un looks just like I did when I was his age. Poor guy. And then I have another daughter. She's a high school English teacher. Very smart. Graduated from a great teaching school in Pennsylvania. And then my youngest daughter, she's an IT specialist / accountant / musician extraordinary / rugby coach player. She's just an incredible young lady. She always has been. She's very gifted. And I tried to go to every one of her events that I could while I was still there before I got transferred. And, I tried to, when I decided that I was going to leave, And there's more to that story. I'll leave for another time. But I tried to explain to my children, hey, this isn't because of you. I love all of you, and none of this between your mom and I, and the stuff that she's doing that she shouldn't be doing. None of that involves you. That's between her and I. That's between her and the other individuals involved. But they didn't want to hear it. All they could think about was, wow, Dad's not going to be here anymore. What are we going to do? I didn't necessarily realize that they were thinking that at the time. I was just thinking that, their mother told me she wanted me to get out, but she still wanted me to pay all the bills and pay for the house, but she wanted me to live somewhere else, and I was trying to figure out how to do all that, so I put in for a transfer, and I got transferred. And then come the day that the movers were coming to move me and down to southeast Georgia, she had the audacity to come to me and say, I can't believe you didn't even ask me to go with you. Huh? And that might be why I started thinking. Because I started thinking, I'm like, excuse me? Didn't you tell me you wanted me to leave? But now that I'm leaving, you're like, why aren't I taking you with me? I wonder why. But anyway, back to the children. So my son was already in university by then, and my oldest daughter was a senior in high school, and then my two younger daughters, let's see, one was getting ready to go, one was in high school, one was getting ready to go in high school, I believe it, something like that. And I tried my best to leave on good terms with my children and try to let them know I love them dearly, and I still love them dearly. If y'all ever watch this, you guys may not believe it, but your mean old dad, the Colonel, he loves you very much. But what happens over time, and they came to visit me, I think, after I left one time, and probably 5 years, 7 years, all of them at one point came to visit me one time. And I used to tell, hey, y'all are welcome to come here anytime you want, and I periodically went up and tried to visit them as my job would permit, which wasn't a lot. And then came time for me to retire. And at that point, my children still responded to me when I would talk to them. And I told them, I said, guess what? I'm retiring. Ah, good for you, Dad. Congratulations. Well, guess what? I'm moving to Thailand. You're doing what? I'm moving to Thailand. Well, why are you doing that? Well, because I want to and because I can. Well, and then an in-law said to me, well, you can't do that, Dad. You have grandchildren. Okay, you're right. I have grandchildren. But you know what? I'm still going to do it. We can still communicate by video. We can communicate by phone call. I might come back to visit once in a while. Or, here's a thought. Maybe you might want to come visit me. Especially now, all my children are super successful financially, except maybe my oldest daughter. I don't know her situation, but my other kids are successful. Now, granted, they have families, and I cut them a break on that a little bit, because it's kind of hard to love 4 kids halfway across on the other side of the world. So I'm not getting angry about that. And honestly, I'm not upset about any of this. It did hurt my feelings at first, but I've gotten over that, and that's why I'm sharing it with you now, because some of you might go through the same situation I did, and I just want you to understand that, there's people out there that do understand it and can relate to you, and if you need to talk to somebody about that, you can contact the Colonel. I'll talk to you about it, because I can relate. So, I went to Thailand, maintained contact with the children as much as I could, tried to remember the birthdays and say happy birthday and whatnot, and they kind of remember to say happy birthday to me, say happy Father's Day to me, and that was 11 years ago. Then I would say about 4 years ago, things started to tail off or get less and less. I would send messages on their birthdays, I wouldn't get a response. Sometimes I'd get, thanks, Dad. And then Father's Day would come around, and my youngest daughter, she wouldn't say a peep. And I'm like, now, I got to back up a little bit. My youngest daughter, I always told my kids she was my favorite. Really just kind of dig at them a little bit. I loved them all the same, but I doted over my youngest one, and I went to all her practices whenever I could that even her mom wouldn't go to. I used to love this excuse. I used to say, "Hey, so and so, honey," whatever I called her at the time. Usually I called her name, so I just say honey for now. Why don't you go to the youngest practices or her concert? Why don't you do? Well, I'm working. Well, I'm like, well, by God, I'm working too. But you know what? I figure it out, and I go to what I can go to. And I'm like, you get off work at such and such a time. She's at practice at the same time you get off to work. Why don't you drive over? Oh, well, no, we went out for drinks after work or blah, this. And I'm like, huh? There's more to that story, too, because that affected me in a certain way. It wasn't positive. So anyway, this back to my youngest. I doted over her. I probably spoiled her a little bit. But she was a special child in that she was highly intelligent, very gifted. Whatever musical instrument she picked up, she taught herself. I never seen anything like it. It didn't matter. Whatever instrument it was, she taught herself, and she was proficient. And she was in the band, and she was very involved in school. And as time went on, she went all the way through high school. She was valedictorian. Now, kudos to my son. He was this close to being valedictorian. And if there wasn't some politics involved with the other fellow's father being an attorney, going in there and raising a stink with the administration, my son would have been valedictorian also. But that's a whole nother story too. You got the short version. So back to my youngest daughter. I doted over her, loved her dearly, loved all my kids. So I really thought out of all my children, this one would be the one that would always keep in contact with me. Oh no, that's not what happened. So as time went on, each of them, each year, I would start to hear less and less. And then I started coming around to Father's Day, and I couldn't even get a Happy Father's Day. And I'm like, what's up with that? And I kind of got into my feelings a little bit, and I sent some messages that were a little bit sideways, maybe. Not mean, but just kind of like, hey, what's up? There's no respect? You can't show a little. I'm still your father. Just because your mom had a boyfriend or has a boyfriend, I'm still your father. I don't care how much he tries to be a better dad than me or whatever, I'm still your father. So, and then the birthdays. I used to get happy birthday, Dad. Then that started slowing down. And then I would get, once in a while I get Thanksgiving or maybe I get Merry Christmas, slowed down. It's to the point now where I get nothing now at 61 years old. And I'm not telling people anything that they haven't experienced either. Hopefully most of you haven't experienced this. But I know from talking to people that there's a lot of men, usually men, I don't know about the women, I usually talk to men. I know that a lot of them are going through the same thing that I'm going through, and they're experiencing the same thing. And each of us, we deal with it in our own way. But I think we would be lying if we said that it doesn't hurt our feelings a little bit. At least our ego for sure. Because we all want to be remembered as good fathers, good dads. And I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and tell you that I was the best dad, I was so good, I was great. Because you know what? I know I wasn't. Which is funny, because when I was in high school and the girls would talk to me, they'd always say, man, Colonel, you're gonna make a great, of course they didn't call me Colonel, but I use that for here. You're gonna make a great dad someday. And they stroked my ego, and I thought, man, I'm gonna be a great dad someday. And I really thought I would. But it takes two in parenting. Kudos to you fathers out there that raise children on your own, and you mothers out there that raise children on your own. Kudos to you if you do it and your children are successful. God bless you. And I think that that's wonderful, and people can learn something from you too. All I'm getting at is, for those of you that feel some sort of way and you're starting to resent your children and everything, I get it and I understand it. Because it's difficult for me sometimes with my ego, for me not to resent the way my children treating me. Because it hurts sometimes. It really does. And I guess maybe with the passing of my friend Jerry, and I know that hurt when I found out about that, I guess it made me start to think about other things in life that hurt. And as you grow older and you have children, especially me, I had 4 children. When you have a lot of children and then they all reject you, they'll tell you if you finally do get a hold of them. I actually spoke with my son recently, and and then he called me back, but I was in the middle and I had to cut him off. And I haven't heard from him since, so I feel terrible about that. So, Colonel Junior, call me back if you see this. But anyway, it does hurt. And whenever I talk to my children, they're like, "Ah, Dad, we love you." Okay, thank you. Actions speak louder than words. I don't tell them that, but that's what I'm thinking. And they're probably thinking the same thing about me. Well, and then other people say, "Oh, you need to keep in contact with your children." I'm like, "Yeah, I agree with you. However, if they don't contact you back, what are you supposed to do? It's a two-way street. It's a two-way street." But, that's where I'm at right now in life, where I would love for my kids to at least remember me on Father's Day. "Happy Father's Day, Dad. I hate you." I'd take that over not hearing anything at all. Of course, I want to hear them say, "Happy Father's Day, I love you." But at least just as you get older, you want to be remembered and you want to be thought of. Because as you look back in your life, you're like, what did I do it all for? What did I do it all for? Yes, we're supposed to live our lives, to honor God, glorify God. That's our main purpose. However, since we're human beings and we have lives that are here on this earth, yes, we have wives or husbands, we have children, we have grandchildren. And when I get a hold of my children on a video call where they actually answer the call or whatever, some of my grandkids will be on, "Hey, Grandpa," and I'm like, "Man, I wish I wasn't that old," but I get that, and that's a wonderful feeling. It's a wonderful feeling. However, I have grandchildren now that, and I'm not saying any of this to get pity. Please don't look at me that way at all. I'm just speaking the truth. I've got some that I haven't even seen, and I've tried to contact, but if your children won't answer the call or won't answer your messages, what are you supposed to do except, you could show up and hope they don't run away as soon as they see you, because that could happen, But what are you supposed to do? You can only do so much. And that's what I'm doing. I'm doing as much as I can. And when people judge me and like, "Oh, you don't keep in contact with your children," I'm like, whoa, hold on now. The colonel can only do so much. You put yourself out there, but you can't make them come back to you and respond back. And then I found out one day I was looking on a certain social media platform and I was looking at a picture that was posted by one of my kids, and I started counting grandchildren. I always told everybody I have 9 grandchildren. I was so proud. I think it's just great. I got, 9 grandchildren. But I started counting bodies on there, counting little kids, and I'm like, 1, 2, 5, 7, 8, 9, what? 10, 11, what? And what's that little boy doing in front of that one? The colonel's got 11 grandchildren. And I was flabbergasted. I'm like, what in the world? I didn't even know my daughters were pregnant. Nobody told me. And I'm like, okay, now this is getting ridiculous. A little bit of disrespect. I get that, and I don't agree with it, but I understand it, But by golly, I'm counting grandkids. I got 2 more grandkids, and they're not babies. They're already toddlers. I'm like, nobody could even send me a message. "Hey, Dad, I'm pregnant again. I'm going to have another baby." Or, "Hey, Dad, one of my sisters, she's having a baby. Oh, and by the way, the other one is too," at the same time. That's just unbelievable. I had one daughter that in the high school years, I knew that as she got older that I was going to have issues with her. And I just assumed, I knew she didn't like me in high school. And there's so many stories I could tell you about that. And, she probably almost lost her life more than once, but, I showed a lot of self-restraint. And because I don't believe in abusing kids, don't do that in front of me. The colonel does not allow that. I don't care who you are. Or abusing your spouse. Colonel don't allow that either. I will say something or do something if I see that. because I'm not the one. I'm sorry. So I thought back to my daughter. I assumed, okay, that's the one I won't have problems with. But lo and behold, all my time in Thailand and whatnot, she's the one of my children that kept in contact with me the most on a regular basis. And she and I have had some wonderful conversations and talked about the past and and how she came about and the kind of messed up way that happened and how I was and how I treated her unfairly probably for many years because of that situation. And she's like, doesn't matter, Dad. You know, that's the past. The past now is now. I love you, and I know you love me, and you'll always be my dad. And that made me feel really good. I was like, wow, I don't deserve that from her at all. But she was willing to put the past behind it and be that way. But even now, coming forward, I haven't heard from her. I haven't heard from her in almost 2 years. And I'm like, what in the world? And I just tried to send a message to her again. And now I found out I can't send messages to her. I'm not authorized. So I don't know what's going on with that. I asked my son about that. Of course, he doesn't either. I don't know, Dad. And I kind of expected that. But he's a busy man. So anyway, the point of all this, and I don't mean to be whining, I'm just telling it like it is, okay? Because I've dealt with it, and I deal with my feelings about it. And I may sound a little bit bitter. I wouldn't say I'm bitter, a little bit hurt. However, I realize that this is the circle of life for some people. Maybe not everybody. I hope there's people out there where your children are just wonderful to you, and they take care of you into your old age, and they're always there for you, and they always love you. I hope that that's the case. But it's not the case for me, so that's why I'm talking about it. So, having said all that, understand that this happens in life sometimes to many people. The older you get, some of your family members, they get further and further away from you, and you hear from them less and less. But how you deal with it is what's important. Don't become bitter. Don't become spiteful. Don't become revengeful. And you're like, well, Colonel, okay, I hear you saying that, but you sound like you're bitter. And sometimes I get a little salty about it. But you know what? I also realize these are people, they're adults now. They have their own lives. If they don't want to be bothered with an old guy like me, I get it, kind of. Because I think about me and my parents. And both my parents are passed away. My mom was 97 years old. My father was 87. And my mom had Alzheimer's. She, probably the last 15 years of life, she didn't know who I was. She didn't know who my father was. She didn't know who she was, really. But she did know God. And she remembered everything that she learned about the Bible. I never could figure that one out. But God bless her for that. And the Lord finally took her home at 97 years old. Made it through COVID and everything. And I miss my dad. I do. I wish I'd talked to him more. I wish I could have talked to my mom more, but I tried. But that circle conversation that every 15 seconds where the same question was asked and answered, I'm not going to lie to you, that's a tough road to hoe. And anybody that's dealt with Alzheimer's, about that, and could be a topic for another video. But I still remember in my head, my ears in my head, I remember hearing my dad on the phone when I would call him. He'd always answer the phone the same way. And I'll never, hey, Doug. I was just like, you don't expect that from my dad because he was so formal and so polite and so stern and conservative. But it was so, hey, Doug, how's it going? And I'll never forget that. I can hear his voice right now. And I would hope that someday when I pass on, which, hey, that could be tomorrow, it could be 10 years from now, who knows? I would hope that my children would remember and they would think back and they would say, you know what? As mean as he seemed to be, he did love me. And that's all you can ask for. That's all you can ask for. Sure, we want more. We all want more. But if you're not getting more, and try to create the memories that last, and hope that the memories you created up to that point will last, and hope that, and pray that they remember what you taught them. Hopefully you taught them good things and not bad things. They may remember the bad times, but hopefully they'll remember more good times. If they remember more bad times, well, only you and they know. You know, I can't do anything about that, and we may not be able to go back. But you can love your children now, and I still love my children. And you know what? I still send them messages, or I try to, knowing that they're not going to answer me, but I know that I did my part. You know, I try to call them. I can't make them answer that phone. And I try to be respectful about what time it is, since I'm on one side of the earth and they're on the other. So there is a 12-hour difference between us usually. I try to be respectful of that and try to understand. So I do my part. And all I can tell the other people out there that are in my situation, make sure you're doing your part. And you know what? This is what I've been thinking. Take care. God bless. If you like the content, if you laughed at some of it, if you think it's ridiculous or it's pathetic, that's fine. But do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, throw me a like, and we'll see what happens. Until next time, take care. God bless. The Colonel's out.